Hello, and welcome to Candidates Upfront, a public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. Our November 7th general election is coming up. Citizens who are 18 or older will vote for judges, school directors, and township, borough, and city officials. The deadline to register to vote is October 23rd. To check your voting status, go to vote.pa.gov. That's vote.pa.gov. You can register, change your party, locate your polling place, or apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. And the deadline to apply for those is October 31st. If you are looking for information on statewide, school, or township races or borough officials, please use the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. That's vote411.org. And for information on countywide and Reading candidates, please stay tuned. The League interviewed candidates in contested races, those who wanted to be interviewed, and for each race, the candidates got the same basic questions and had the same amount of time to answer them. For the League, I'm Judith Cranus, and let's begin. Hello, I'm Judith Cranus, a member of the League of Women Voters. The featured office today is City of Reading Council President. The President of Council is elected citywide and must be a resident of the city. The President presides at council meetings and performs those duties that are needed to organize council functions. She or he has the same powers as the other 6 council members, in other words, 1 vote. And the President interacts with the mayor and other governmental entities and represents the voice of council. She's the one who speaks for council. The position is part-time, the term is 4 years, and the current salary is $5,500. And there are 3 candidates running: Donna Reed, who is the Democrat, the Republican, Evelyn Morrison, and Christian Melvin Padilla Santos. It's a Christian party. Each candidate's views are their own, of course. They're not necessarily those of the League or BCTV. And today our candidate is Donna Reed. Welcome, Donna. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Judith. It's always a pleasure.
Would you please tell our viewers about yourself and why you're running?
Yes, I've been.
I would take a minute and a half for that one.
Okay. Yes, I've been on City Council more or less since 2002. The bulk, virtually until January this year, the bulk of that time representing District 5, which I like to call Reading's Great Northwest. It has been an honor to serve. Public service is something that from the time I was young was important to me. I was a journalist with the Reading Eagle for nearly, 23 odd years until I left that position because I knew I wanted to have the other side of the spectrum and serve in elective office. So I left there, went to the Berks County Chamber of Commerce, ran for City Council, and was lucky enough to be elected back in 2001. We've faced a lot of different issues over the years, and including the craziness of Antietam Lake, the long-term evolution of our finances to get out of Act 47, and a myriad of other issues going year by year, decade by decade. My education is, I grew up in Muhlenberg High School, went to American University in Washington, D.C. My family is here, my son, my grandchildren, my husband. We're firmly entrenched in Reading. I believe in this city. I believe it has such good people and things. And this year, as we celebrate our 275th, it has been a pleasure to serve on that committee and highlight the beauty of our city and its natural beauty, as well as its historic relevance to not just this area, but to the nation as a whole.
Thank you. What personal qualities do you have that would help you be an effective council president?
I believe, again, with my background in journalism, that transparency is absolutely critical. I'm a fanatic about sunshine law. Never want to see that violated. When we do have things like executive sessions, I don't want to see those violated either because they're very sensitive. They're real estate, their contracts, their personnel. So we're very fussy about that. I think I can bring people together. There's sort of one exception on council. It's not the case, but I believe I've been able to develop consensuses among in the last year and even prior to that. We all play roles in trying to bring people together and help us or try to see issues in the same way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's democracy at its finest. I believe, I don't just believe, I have a record of integrity. I challenge anyone to defy that. And to me, that is one of the most critical things. Transparency and integrity in government is absolutely critical, and I believe I represent that.
Do you think Penn Street is healthy and successful? And if not, what would you do to make it healthy and successful?
Penn Street is challenged these days. We all know that. There are some lovely small businesses that are working very hard. I always get a little frustrated when everyone says, well, that's not the Penn Street of my youth. Well, nothing's the place for our youth. Not Muhlenberg, not Valley Borough, not Fleetwood. Everything evolves and changes. And with our changing demographics in our city, our downtown is going to be different. And I think the challenges of developing a entrepreneurially healthy downtown, a downtown where people want to come and walk around and purchase and work with retail and restaurants. I think we're on a way up. College Town has been a blessing, an absolute blessing. We see small businesses like Franklin's up around 10th and Penn surviving. We see the Marvell Ranch. How long has that been there? And that's still going strong. The Peanut Bar, I think, is heading for its 100th anniversary next year. So we have established businesses and we have new businesses interested in coming in. Maritza, who is our downtown coordinator, has done great things, and I have great confidence that we're moving the downtown forward.
What do you see as the biggest issues that will face Reading in the next 4 years?
Number one, we have to get our handle on crime, violent crime. We can say all we want, but the reality is it's happening. And it comes out of smaller issues. It comes out of the sort of lawlessness we're seeing with everything from codes violations to loud music to running traffic lights and speeding, all these kind of things. Somehow we have to get a handle on that. Our police department does a great job, but they are really challenged with what they're dealing with. We have Census 2020 tells us our city's around 95,000. We know the political and the operational issues that went with Census 2020. Look at the school district population. My guess is we're closer to 100,000. Densely packed. A lot of people economically challenged. Other issues we need to deal with, finances. Can't let them go awry. We worked hard with Act 47. We've lost some revenue streams. Got to get our handles on that. Got to keep moving on the playground so our youth have places to go, working with groups that give our youth weekend and after school places to be, places to go. And at some point, the adults in the community have to step up and understand there's accountability in the roles they need to play.
Some in our community says Reading has traffic problems and parking problems. How would you mitigate those concerns or change the situation?
We've dealt as a council over the last several years with different legislation to try to work with parking, to try to make it more, to ameliorate the issue better. It's really hard. We have all these small homes that are converted into multiple apartments. There might be 3 people living in a 3-bedroom apartment. They might each have a car. The streets were never built for that. This was made to be a walkable neighborhood, a walkable city. And the issues that come around the parking there's nothing good about it. Everybody wants to park in front of their house. We're all human beings, but that has created many issues. So the neighborhood parking pockets that have opened up, that has been helpful, but again, convincing people to pay when they think they can park for free is another issue. And Judith, I'm sorry, the other part of that was parking and
the parking and the traffic problems.
Well, traffic, that we have to rely on our police department, and again, they're so overwhelmed. I know they do everything they can possibly do, but where's the personal accountability? If there's a stop sign, stop at the stop sign. It says 15 miles an hour, school zone, like I just passed Glenside, 15 miles an hour. Think about the people on the street. Think about the children. Think about that poor 14-year-old who was hit up at Reading High last week. Think about, these are people. This isn't the metal of your car. These are human beings people love and cherish. As drivers, we should put that in our heads as well.
Thank you. Let's do about 30 seconds on this next question. What are the most important concerns of the people of Reading? What do you hear?
Oh, absolutely. Crime. Absolutely crime. That's the number one. The condition of the streets, the litter, the trash people see is very disheartening. I know that we've done a program of Adopt a Block, and our Clean City folks have been extraordinary. But they can go and get everything cleaned up, and half an hour later, somebody's throwing a McDonald's bag full of trash on Front Street. You know, what I see makes me crazy. When I go to City Hall on Mondays for our meetings, I occasionally take my little rabbit out of the trunk because I see all this trash on 8th Street in front of City Hall. What does that tell our visitors to City Hall? Where is the personal accountability? But people are really get upset about that. So violent crime, parking, trash, these are all things that mar what can be a beautiful city. And of course, noise. Decibels are out of sync with the kind of noise that people think is appropriate from their cars or homes in the neighborhoods.
How do you plan to involve residents in this decision-making process?
Well, we're always there at City Hall on Mondays. The formal meetings, we welcome public comment. It's even easier now because you can Zoom in. You actually don't have to come into City Hall. We have folks who will submit written comments that are read into the record. Having community meetings is important. They happen more or less sporadically, it seems. We used to, in years past, have a neighborhood coordinator who would help set those up. As you know, council are part-time positions, and many of the counselors work full-time. Many of us have other obligations we need to deal with. Not that we don't want to do more, but sometimes your time frame is limited. So again, call us. You can call the council office. You can email the council office. You can express your comments in person, virtually, by mail or email. And we do hear what people say to us. There's no question.
Thank you. When council is approving a mayoral appointment, what criteria will you consider?
Lauren, we have a good nominations and appointments committee. It is headed right now by councilors Chris Miller and Marcia Goodman Hennershitz. There is a whole application process. When the mayor presents someone to us, that person is interviewed. It is a rarity, and especially, and not just this administration, but years past, it is a rarity that someone is not moved forward. So, you know, we expect that when someone is presented to us, they filled out their application, they made sure that they checked all the blanks and explained, and that helps us with the interview process. Then the committee then forwards those names to the council as a whole to vote via resolution.
Thank you. Let's talk about blighted properties. Some say they should be fixed, some say developed, some say repurposed. How would you address the issue of blighted properties in the city?
Well, years back, I sat on the blighted property committee. What I see with that is there's no follow-up that really makes sense. I think there's a frustration among the members of the committee right now. Each property is different. Some aren't so blighted. And, you know, people are notified, they come back, they fix the issue. Others are falling apart. People ignore what's going on. And then the question, how far does it go in terms of process? You know, we have to follow the legal process. Does it go then to the disposition tax sale or something like that? Does it go to the Reading Redevelopment Authority and perhaps for eminent domain? There's all sorts of remedies, but again, it's been frustrating in the last few years to see that those remedies, I don't believe, have been followed up on. And we have so many blighted properties, some noticeable blighted properties. And one of the key issues for me are some of the major downtown buildings that are owned in particular by one out-of-state developer, that why we're not following up and why we're not pursuing this. You talk about the downtown, you talk about Penn Street. How does that make the city look when major buildings are falling apart in the downtown?
Most of the time, most of the time Reading is a safe place to work, live, and visit. Yet there is violence related to drugs, gangs, and disagreements. And that hurts the neighborhoods and the city's reputation. What can the city do to thwart this violence?
Well, I think there's a lot of efforts being made, especially with the youth, to try to reach out. You know, we can't be in everybody's house. We can't know who has access to guns. This is where the parental piece, whether it's parental, guardian, grandparent, aunt, uncle, big brother, big sister, this is where the personal accountability falls. How does a 14-year-old get a gun and shoot and kill a 16-year-old a couple blocks from the hospital? I mean, how can our police department get in that house and get that gun, having no concept what's going on? So the neighbors, you know, in the old days, neighbors knew each other, but the transients of the city, they don't anymore. We do have a gang problem in the city, as many cities do, so there's no question about that. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things for violence prevention. Our police department is working well with outside entities from the county to beyond, to DEA and others. I don't personally feel scared ever in being in Reading. Maybe it's because I've been here so long, but I don't feel nervous being in a city. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I don't feel nervous when I leave City Hall at night. Perfectly fine walking in my car. Sometimes people overdo it in terms of being worried.
Budget decisions are hard. Sometimes the services that people enjoy, like parks and libraries, are underfunded, so things people need, like police and street repair, can be properly funded. How will you prioritize spending when you vote on a budget?
Well, the great thing is we spend a great deal of time line by line by line on these budgets. I wish I had, back in 2002, started accumulating how many hours we spent every year in the budgets. But we do go over them department by department. We ask a lot of questions. For me, public safety, police, fire are the critical things to keep our residents safe and secure. Parks play a huge role. You know, it's not all just money that comes from general fund. There are other places that money can be derived, CDBG, home funds, things like that. So there are avenues that aren't just the direct tax revenue avenues. But when it comes to the general fund itself, we always need, by law, keep surplus. And I think we have to go through the whole budget. But to me, the essentials have to be there: police, fire, public safety. And if there are ancillary things, like if there's an office that doesn't really need, say, a third person, well, then maybe that third person goes to another office that is understaffed. Don't want to have anybody lose jobs or anything like that, but we want to make sure that our people are doing their job, doing their work, earning their money, and serving our citizens.
We're going to only have 45 seconds for this next question. What is the one thing you most hope to accomplish if elected?
Well, I don't mean to correct you, but this is just a 2-year term. It's normally a 4-year term. This is a 2-year term to complete the term that was started by our late council president, Jeff Wallman. Jeff was extraordinary. He served on council for many years. He understood numbers, wealth management. He was a conciliator. He could bring people together. He understood the priorities of city government. He understood the importance of integrity and transparency. To me, he was an absolute role model. Also, full disclosure, he felt like a little brother to me. And the reason I'm running for this is to finish up his 2 years in the model he would have expected, and first, certainly with my personal touch as well. But we were in tandem in how we reacted to things, and believe that working hard, drawing consensus can bring the city forward.
Thank you. We're going to combine our next two questions, and again, we need them in about 45 seconds. What are your ideas to make Reading an attractive place for family, and your ideas to make Reading an attractive place for businesses?
Well, one is for families. I think we're seeing improvements in the school system. That's important. The parks are important. Quality of life. Codes has to step up much more than we've seen, so that if you buy a property, you're not going to find the place next to you with weeds that are 3 feet high and no one's doing anything about it. So those quality of life is absolutely imperative for families moving here. I'm sorry, the second part of the question was?
Making it attractive for businesses.
Well, we have to do a better job on that. I actually had to intervene with a person that bought a beautiful property here in the city. And a couple of weeks ago, he was ready to turn around and go back to Harrisburg. So at the county's request, I sat down with him and with the county with him to ask him to please reconsider and be here. Our one-stop shop, which is designed to encourage people, in his case was no, 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 no. Yeah, it's just like a 2-year-old toddler saying no. When we have quality people coming in, now people trying to lobby us because they want to do something outside the rules. But when we have quality folks coming in and we negate their efforts and then they go back to their home communities and say, maybe you don't want to go to Reading, we got to do better. And that was an eye-opening experience. I don't want any more of those. And I'm just going to be aware of what's happening.
Thank you. We have about 15 seconds for you to make a closing statement.
Well, I would ask support going into the November election. I clearly look different. I have had some issues and health challenges. I will be on the other side of it. Come January, I expect to serve full tilt, full energy. I want to honor Jeff Waltman's legacy, and I'd like to be there as a transition from the older, the traditional council or the council that people are used to the new council. So there is someone there who can say, okay, we dealt with this in Act 47. Let's look at how this can be done. Let's look at how we can improve blighted property population. Here's the past. Let's go forward with new thoughts. I think I can be valuable. I think I have out of 3 candidates certainly the most experience, and I believe the most knowledge of the charter and of our citizens as a whole, and of the ability to work with our administration and our auditor to move the city forward. So, again, I'm doing this as a legacy to our dear Jeff and as a transition to a new body of council that will start to take shape in January, but 2 years from now will really be very different.
Thank you, Donna Reed, for sharing your views with us. Viewers, please remember there are 2 other candidates, Evelyn Morrison, and let me get the other name before I've lost it, Melvin Padilla Santos. So there are 3 to choose, and you'd vote for 1. You will find our candidate upfront interviews on BCT, its website, and its YouTube page. For more information on more candidates, in fact, almost all the other candidates, go to the League's online voters guide, vote411.org, or contact Berks County Election Services for any question that you have about the process of an election. That's elections@countyofberks.com. Their phone number is 610-478-6490. Thank you for watching Candidates Up Front. I'm Judith Cranis. Good day.